Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Minton, and as you can see, we have left the studio. This is a very special moment for us. This is our first Operation Hijack TBR. Operation Hijack TBR. All right, this is what's happening. My brother-in-law, Jonathan, was walking around with a broken ankle for I don't know how long. Finally went to the doctor. Now, he's had to have surgery and he's laid up. He says, you know what, I'm just gonna catch up on some books and just do some reading. We're gonna hijack his TBR. He's never read the Human Story Automatic 3000, Brandon Sanderson. I'm gonna drop these books on him. We're gonna hijack his TBR. All right, well, this is my brother-in-law, Jonathan. You're known on the internet as...
No.
As you can see, he's laid up. He finally got his broken ankle addressed and we're all very happy about that. He was just gonna convalesce here and read some books. But what books? We are hijacking his TBR. Now, I don't know how much fantasy you've read recently. I remember buying books for you when you were reading Redwall.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute.
It's been a lot of years.
A lot of years since you've read fantasy.
Yes.
This starts a trilogy. It's not like your classic medieval setting, it's more of a Renaissance setting.
Okay.
It's kind of like Danny Ocean meets fantasy because there's a caper going on.
Yeah.
There's an amazing magic system. I know you kind of like analytical computing and stuff, so I picked this specifically for you. You agree to read this?
Yeah, sounds great.
We got him! TBR hijack. So when you finish, you're gonna let us know, and we're gonna come back, we'll crack open some frosty beverages.
Yeah.
You'll still be stuck on the couch.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about everything you thought.
Yeah, no, sounds great.
Okay? Stay tuned. Okay.
Do a clap. There we go.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Minton. I'm here with Jonathan, and Einstein wanted to join us as well. Yeah, hey, how you doing? He has finished the book. What, 2.5 weeks? 3 weeks?
3 weeks, yeah.
3 weeks, right around 3 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Not bad, not bad. Okay, so we are one book into the MISTBORN trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. His TBR was effectively hijacked.
Did you say Sadnerson?
Sanderson? Sad? No, he's not sad.
He's very wealthy.
He's very, very happy dude, I bet. So let's just get into it. What did you think? Overall, did you have a good reading experience?
Yeah, I loved it.
Did you really?
It was great, yeah.
Just right off the bat, you gonna read book 2?
Yeah, I need to find time to read book 2, but yes.
I gotta get 3. Well, how's the foot?
Foot's doing better. Hoping I've got like another week and a half of this thing, and then the doctor will be like, hey, you can walk like a real person again.
So you're almost back to kind of real life.
Yeah.
That's why it might be not as easy to find some time.
Right. I can actually like walk around now as opposed to...
It's highly overrated.
I miss it.
You know what? You've got Einstein. You got this couch, right? It's really all anyone ever needs.
Einstein would be happy for me to stay, but he can be a little suffocating sometimes.
You got a brother-in-law to bring you books. That's all you need right there. So we get people to bring in pizza. We're covered. So we're going to go over the 5 categories I like to use when I review a book, and I'm going to see what Jonathan thought of the book. So the first one was world building. Did he paint a picture for you? Did you see the world? Were there things about the world that particularly impacted you or that you liked or that were different from other books?
Yes, I mean, like, world building was awesome. I found myself enjoying that about the book, like, through the entire thing, is the way, it starts off and it's just in this dark world with, like, these ash storms. And there's, like, in every setting, there's a comparison of, when you're outside, you make sure to mention when you come inside, you're, like, covered in ash, you're dirty.
Sets the tone right away.
It really does when it's like, hey, like, we're, like, working, trying to do some stuff, like, in the mud, doing stuff.
Yeah.
And, I mean, not just, like, the nature, even into the characters, you get characters with ulterior motives that you're like, hey, I want to know more about, like, what's going on. Like, hey, maybe you're not telling me something here where you're like, I don't know if I should trust you. And, I mean, it's just, from world building characters, it's a lot of fun.
Was it fun being like an urban setting that you don't necessarily get in fantasy sometimes? Because that was one of the things that struck me. It's like I kind of Like you kind of see the back of Notre Dame with the flying buttresses and like the architecture and stuff, which I just thought gave it such a different flavor.
That's a good point. It's not like I don't know, what do you call it, where you have like elves and trees and a whole bunch of like natural
like
sort
your
of artifacts.
regular
It almost brings
medieval
on like,
Western Europe. Yeah,
it's almost like pre-industrialization.
Yeah.
And no, that was definitely a cool aspect of it.
Yeah. Interesting you said that, because the second series on this world is after kind of an industrial revolution. So they time skip a couple hundred years and you kind of get that feel.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Actually, now I'm really excited to read book 2.
You got it.
I'd love to see.
That doesn't happen in book 2.
The world is, I mean, this world is as much of a character as the actual characters. Like, you start to see it and you're like, hey, what did happen? You start to get, like, fill in the pieces and you're like, but I kind of want to know what happens with the world.
Right. And that's such a perfect segue into our second category, which is plot, right?
Yeah.
Because so much of this plot revolves around what has happened to this world.
Am I allowed to drink?
Oh, okay. Knock yourself out. We've got frosted beverages here for everyone. And this is pure North Carolina, guys. Cheer wine. So, cheers to you. So much of the plot is like the Dark One has won. Like this is a world that's moved on in not a good way, right?
Sure.
So we kind of have addressing that. Did the plot engage you? Did you find some twists and turns? Were you able to see where it was going? Did it surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, like, some things you kind of see where things are going, and you're like, okay, let me see how this plays out, and it's cool. Like, it's not, like, in a boring way of being like, nah, not this again. But it kind of fills in these other characters where it's still really interesting for you. And then, yeah, there's absolutely twists and turns.
Yeah. Yeah. And that does not stop.
No.
That I can say for book 2. No. Like, everything you think you know.
Okay.
Like, the things, he's peeled back the curtain on that. He has not peeled back the curtain on that. Yeah. Like, that's the amazing thing. And the smallest things in book 1, the little breadcrumbs he's laying down, he's such an architect. By books 3, you're going, he pays off everything, which is just, I was not prepared for that. I didn't think it would be that kind of writer, but he turned out being that way.
Nice.
So he did take some of the old fantasy tropes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But he put a nice spin on them, I thought.
For sure.
And what about the plot really engaged you? Was it the caper aspect of it? Was it just revealing the world through the plot? Or what was like, this really got me?
I really liked the world that was, I mean, like the caper, like the characters and everything that happened within the world was all great. Like it was all a good story where like, yeah, I want to know what happens with the caper. I want to know what happens with these characters. But for me, like definitely the world itself was the really, really cool thing to actually like, to have such an imagination to paint such a world is really incredible that you can read it. And it is incredibly easy to be immersed, where now it's almost like if I were to look up again, I feel like I would be in the keeps that happen and everything that's going on around. And you can even look across the room and you know what these people look like and how they're acting and their facial expressions. And it's so relatable.
So we can't go past world and plot with the Sanderson book without talking about magic system. Okay. This is what he's known for. Yeah. Is hard magic systems. It is thought out down to a scientific level almost, right?
Yes.
So that I loved it about this trilogy. It was such a different take on a magic system. How did that hit?
It was incredible reading about the magic system, of how detailed it is and how, I mean, I don't know how it goes in the other books, but at least in this first one, it was a layer of introducing, being like, hey, here are the common elements, here's how they interact, and then it's almost like this is how you use them. And I almost, for a second, felt like in some of these like scenarios where, main character that's learning about this magic, it almost feels like a tutorial level of a video game. Yeah. Where like you're like
that first level, like I got into the world.
Like,
Let me into the world. Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm going to push this button and I'm going to do a thing, and then someone tells you, be like, hey, this is how you use it and this is what it means, and then it's like in my head I almost see like a heads up display pop up being like, and here's my bar of health. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, that's actually really helpful. But like I found that helpful thinking it that way because it is so complicated. I was like, hey, I need to keep the things you keep track of is like your ability to use the magic, what you can use them with, and you find yourself like mentally arranging them and visualizing it, and then I wish I knew this at the beginning, but at the end of the book,
Yeah.
there's actually like an appendix to tell you about all the magic, and it actually has the thing I was trying to make in my mind. And so once I saw that, I was like,
surprised you didn't
that's
build an
actually
app.
really helpful. Yeah. No.
So it's such an amazing system, and what you will find as you go on into books 2 and 3,
Yeah.
like there's other ways to tap into these base minerals as opposed to just ingesting or burning.
Cool.
So you're gonna find, and some of them are way darker than I was expecting.
Yeah.
But I can't wait for you to continue journeying to kind of start to find those things out. So okay, let's go into characters a little bit. We have so many amazing characters.
Yes.
In book 1, right? Like the whole crew. But I mean, let's focus on some of the main ones. And I'm just gonna throw some names out. You let me know what you thought, and I want to know who your favorite was at the end. Okay.
Okay.
So let's start with Kelsier.
Kelsier. I didn't trust him at first. I don't know if I'd had like too much of like Game of Thrones or like Walking Dead or like modern dramas where just like you just get stuff flipped on your head all the time.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he was like too nice of a guy. And so I spent, and maybe that's because Vin was also like, did I say that right? It's
Vin. Yeah.
Vin, not very trusting of him either.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, I don't like this guy. But then, man, that character just kind of grows and turns around. It does. I don't even know how to say stuff without spoiling the book.
Yeah, it's hard, right?
Yeah, but I'm trying to find the words.
He's dealing with baggage, right? He's somewhat of a broken dude.
Yep.
And he's trying to rectify and save not only what's left of himself, but this world around him. And his journey like really spoke to me. And coming from comics, and so much of this book I felt was like, there's like Marvel Universe level set pieces that happen, right? And it's like, oh my, I can see every bit of that, like in IMAX. And he just fit right in that as that type of tired, depleted hero that's got one last stand in him, you know?
Yes.
And I just really dug his journey. So, okay, so you said Vin. Let's go on to Vin.
All right.
What did you think? Now, this is some of the classic Sanderson tropes. He not always, but oftentimes he has a young lady that is pulled from her world that she's comfortable in and knows, even if it's an unhealthy world in Vin's situation, and is pulled into a new, different world that she has to interpret and figure out. So what was her journey like for you?
I think of the characters, I think Vin was the most predictable. I felt like
Really?
her journey, like it just felt like I could see as it was built up being like, hey, she had a lot of issues with trust. It was just kind of like repeated on. I saw her grow, and I wasn't too surprised by that. But like as just it's also the character that you spend the most time with in the book. And
that is true.
I found her
You're
to be
close
like,
to her through.
It was like a good companion to be like, hey, we're gonna figure this out together. And I think that makes it like, it's not like a knock against her character. I feel like I needed that to be like, she's the only character that's constant, really.
Yeah.
And
she's like your every person,
right?
Because she's learning so much too, while you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I mean, like, there wasn't too much that shocked me about Vin. There's like a couple of things where you're like, hey, that was really nice. But like overall, like Vin was just like that constant in the book where I was like, the stable one, which ironically her character is like
doesn't start that way.
Is like not stable at all. But the fact that she's there is like all you need. So
kind of another Sanderson thing that he is somewhat known for going on in some of his other works is these characters are they've got some psychological baggage, some mental challenges they're trying to overcome. And to see from the life that she's come from, the abuse that she's come from, to almost be suffering on a PTSD level to an extent of some of the things that she's gone through. And then through the defining herself through these new people she's meeting, blossom and come out of that.
Yes.
I just really like that. And the definition of her from other people brings me to think about Elan. What did you think of Elan? Now, some people have some hate for Elan, so I can't wait to see what you thought.
Elan. Who? Her rival?
No. The guy that she was at all the parties with, who, the kind of...
Elan. Yeah, he was...
Not very memorable for you.
No. I mean, like, he was... Okay, so we can get to that point. There's, like, a point in the book where he's, like, kind of like the love interest. Like, she's like a young teenager, and there's a whole thing... To me, it doesn't really, like... that's probably the least interesting part of the book for me. Is like that
For
aspect.
actually, a lot of people are on that page.
Yeah. But I mean, like, as a character, you know, I did think it was interesting being like, hey, you're hanging out with this guy. Be like, as, you know, maybe I'm older now, but I'm like going back and be like, no, you shouldn't hang out with that kind of character. When I was younger, I might have been like, I don't care. But anyways, you didn't really know what was going on with him. You're like, oh yeah, you're like one of the most powerful people in the world.
Right.
And it's a little shaky. And then I didn't expect at the end, like, his character or his story arc, I didn't expect it to end the way it did. I thought for sure it was going in a different direction of death and destruction.
Yeah. The one thing I think Alon is such an interesting Sandersonian thing that he tends to do. If there are troubles in the world, situations in the world, get thee to a library. Like this kid had his head in a book the whole time.
Yes.
And that's such a Sanderson thing, you know, like find that hidden library, find those answers. Like that happens. You'll see it happen several times. And in this trilogy as well, they're off to find answers in that way. So let's move. Okay. So pace, did it move for you? Let's move on to a different category away from, it's kind of a spoiler, but I'm just going to ask, what did you think of my favorite character in this whole series, Sazed?
Sazed's great. I thought he, like, when he first got introduced, he felt more to Vin anyways. He felt like a father figure.
Yeah.
To Vin. And I thought that was, you know, he's patient and knowledgeable and imparting and kind of almost, I don't know, not whimsical, but it's almost like if I could see him, you'd like see in his eyes and be like, hey, I know what's going on here, so I'm going to give you the information you need right now.
Kind of like a fairy godfather.
Yeah. That's a good...
But he goes from that, the journey he takes, oh my gosh, I can't wait for you to keep going. Like, there's a reason why he's my fave. Like, I can't, that's all I'm going to say. So, okay, so let's move on to the world building, plot, character, pace.
All right.
Did it roll? I know you didn't blow through it in a week or something, but you got stuff going on in your life.
So
the JOB and all that, you know.
I think, you know, with any book, when you first start off, you know, this book for one's like 600 pages, and I didn't realize picking it up it would be like, oh, this isn't something I'm going to blow through in like a week.
Yeah.
But like going through it, I was like, okay, there's like this first portion of every book where you're like, okay, I need to get introduced, I need to know what's going on, I need to get invested. In this book, it's a lot longer than shorter books I've read. And I found myself that the first part of that book, it's a little slower, but it's like important. It almost feels denser.
Yeah.
Like you read that slower because you're like, I'm so new to this. I'm like, hey, and there's lots of characters that you're like almost building places in your mind to store all of this stuff. So when you pick it back up, you're not
and a
like,
whole magic system and a whole world and a whole history of that world. Yeah.
And it's, for me, I found myself reading that part of the book slower just because I wanted to soak all of those details in, and I was loving it.
Yeah.
And then I found as the book, like the pace of the book, I found would just increase as you got towards the end. And then by the end of the book, I mean, and it's building too, right? Mm-hmm. So like all this stuff you lay out and like, I mean, every page before it, by the end of it, I'm just like spinning, I'm like flipping through pages to get through all of this, and I'm just like, whoa, like everything that's happening is like blowing your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, people call that the Sanderlanche.
Yeah.
Like he lays all the groundwork, and then at the end it's just,
it is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
It is exactly what, because you start reading, you're like, hey, I'm in this nice world. Hey, here are these characters, and you get into like the background of each, but not enough, and it kind of like layers on. You're like, cool, I'm going to take that piece and go, and I'm going to build on top of it. And then by the end of it, you're like, it's almost like some point in the book where the book's like, all right, you know enough about what's going on here, and now just
and then, boom. Yeah.
And we're just going to line them all up and knock them all down.
So the last thing we look at when we review is prose. The prose styling's his style of a writer. How did that come across for you?
I loved it. As a person who wishes they had more time to read, I found it very easy to get into.
Yes. That's what people, like if anyone is like, it's not really purple prose or flowery language that much or overladen with metaphors. It's kind of workmanlike. It's kind of simple. But at the same time, it brings across so many interesting the themes and characters and world easily to digest.
Yeah. I don't have another way of saying that. You did fine. I can't. Yeah, you got it. That's it.
But
that's
you had
exactly
that,
what that's right.
But you had the same. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you just read it. And you're reading the book, and you're like, hey, and when you. Is it high fantasy? Is that what that is? Where you have like elves and orcs and stuff?
It would be like a world removed from ours.
Yeah.
So not fantasy taking place on our. It's a higher world.
But when you think of something like Lord of the Rings and J.R. Tolkien and that sort of thing, like the language is different. Maybe that's just more of like from when.
Well, there are many languages. That was his bag,
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like that, but it is. It's more of like a workman's, like a working text where you read it and you see, like you get. I want to say you get fed, but like he tells you all of the details without layering on so much flowery language where you're like, man, it's been a while since I took the SATs. Let me look that word up.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey.
Yeah, that never hits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you were to pick a star for each of the categories.
All right.
All right, so you got a star for world building. You go a full star. You can go anywhere from a quarter to a full star.
I mean, like, this is probably the first thing I've read with real world building in like 10 years. So,
yeah.
Full star.
Okay.
Like, without a doubt.
Plot, the twists and turns, the ending card Kelsier had, the journey you went on.
Oh, man.
Anywhere from a quarter to a full star.
I mean, so, hands down, world building for me was like the most enjoyable part. Like, I loved reading the book for that. I think I enjoyed it more than... Wait, what's the star again?
Plot.
Plot? Yeah, I'd probably say I like the world building more than the plot. I'd probably say 3/4 star.
3/4. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're 1 3/4.
I don't know, like a 4/5.
Yeah. Okay. Character.
Characters. All interesting. I liked them, but if it's like, am I doing like a stack ranking?
Yeah. You're not crazy about Alond or the love interest part.
Right.
You can take a little bit off.
It's probably like a 1/2 to a 3/4. And like, I liked the characters.
Well, you got to pick 1/2 or 3/4.
I'll probably go 1/2.
Okay.
I don't even know what the next
so we
star
got a full
is.
3/4 and a half.
Yeah.
The next one is pace.
Oh, shit. I mean, pace. Pace was masterfully written, I think. Like, the way it starts off with the world building and then it's just layered on top of it. You got to give it a full star.
Okay.
Can I do that? 2 full stars?
Yeah. So you got 2 full stars, a 3/4.
Does that change your previous?
Well, yeah, because I was like,
oh no, you can.
When you have a race, you don't have like 2 people in.
No,
first place.
we're trying to get to like if it's a 5-star reader or something. So we're going to add all this up at the end.
Oh my god! All right, I need a piece of paper.
So I was tracking. So you got world building, a full star.
Yep.
You got plot 3/4. You want to change that?
Actually,
or leave it 3/4.
Nah, still 3/4.
Okay. You got characters. Half.
Okay.
Pace a full.
Yeah.
So the last one is prose.
Prose is really well done. I like his style, but I don't know that it's like a full star style. I'd probably say a 1/2.
A 1/2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's.
So we got
1/2 is like it's done great.
Right. So we got a full 3/4, a 1/2, 2 halves. So that's a full. So that's 2 3/4, and then I don't know. Someone else add this.
All right. 3
3
3/4.
1/4.
3/4.
3 3/4 star.
Boy.
Almost 4.
Someone that watches this really needs you to double check my math on this, by the way. I also use the calculator.
Yeah.
I understand, not that reliable.
He used the calculator and he's still not sure.
Yeah.
So you're gonna go 3 3/4. You feel good about that?
Oh, that feels low.
Feels low. You want to change this to like a 4?
Yeah, I thought it was at least a 4.
Okay. So overall he's saying 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Overall we're saying 4. This was a great time. I had the most fun sharing this with you, and I'm so excited you're going to keep reading. As soon as you finish book 2, you have to let me know.
Okay.
And I'll bring more frosty beverages, but I'm going to leave all the cameras and stuff at home. And Einstein
You
will...
don't like having all this.
Einstein will just hang out and we'll just talk. So, okay. I know it's been hard to do non-spoilers. Sometimes we do a little spoiler section.
All right.
So if you have not checked out MISTBORN Era 1, first of all, what are you doing? The same stuff I was doing when I started this channel. I was looking for new writers. I had not found Brandon Sanderson. I was like the one person living under a rock. So we started our Cosmere catch-up when we started this channel 9 months ago, 10 months ago?
I think coming up on 10.
Coming up on 10. So now it's so awesome to share it with my brother-in-law. So if you haven't read this, log off now. Jump off now because we're going to go into some spoiler territory. I'll give you a couple seconds. That's all you get. Okay. So,
So spoiler section.
Spoiler section.
I can't believe everybody died.
No, stop. Okay.
Seriously, log off.
So, Kelsier's master plan at the end, like I'm reading along, and at the end, his master plan is, I'm gonna
turn myself into a religious figure.
Yes, like
And it works.
It becomes a Messiah story, and I did not see that coming whatsoever. And it was like it sets up so many themes coming forward in this trilogy of faith and religion and how that impacts a society. And I was totally came from left field for me.
And for me, like reading the book, because throughout the book, then Kelsier, I mean, like basically every character that talks to Sazed, right, is like eventually brings up like relating to some sort of religion of like, hey, this is the one for you. Hey, you should try this. And it's insightful into the world. And be like, yeah, that's kind of an interesting way to give character into the world and do everything else. And then once you're like, oh, Kelsier's asking him about this because he's like, this is the way.
He's cataloging.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was so, because you're thinking about, I don't know how they're going to pull this off. And then the tables keep turning and it gets harder and harder. And it's like, how are they, I've read this whole book and they're not going to pull this off.
Yep.
And Kelsier always has that last card to play.
Yeah.
And I did not see that card coming. Did you see the card?
No, not at all. In fact, like probably in the last it's the last 100 pages or so, everything that's going on, I'm kind of like, I'm looking at the rest of it going, I'm like, everyone's about to die. Like, this is all going to be horribly wrong. And they're just going to be like, and
scene.
All of this was for nothing.
Yeah.
You're really upset.
Yeah.
Like, I just wasted all this time reading 600 pages. Nothing's changed. Like, everything you lived for is meaningless. And I'm like, God, I really
hate my brother-in-law.
I hope my brother-in-law did not suggest me to read such a book.
Yeah. But I didn't.
No, you didn't, thankfully.
If you want us to hijack your TBR, right? The next time I'm going to be out and about in a bookstore, I am going to be at the Quail Ridge Bookstore in Raleigh, North Carolina for Christopher Rocchio's book signing of Disquiet Gods. If you're going to be anywhere near there and you would like to come and meet us and talk to us for 10 or 15 minutes and let us know some of your favorite books, favorite movies, favorite games, and I can kind of filter all that through and decide what I think you would love, I'll pick that book up for you at the bookstore. And then if you have some kind of way to get online with us, like a video call, Zoom, StreamYard, something like that, we'll check back in with you after you finish the book. And your TBR could be hijacked next. So hit me up in the comments if that's a possibility for you. And Jonathan, thank you so much. Jacob, thanks for setting everything up as always. Hit us up in the comments what you thought of Hijack a TBR. If you want to be next, my name is John Minton. We love comments. I'm going to answer them right away. It's the whole reason we started the channel. And this has been Talking Story.
I do not want to see this when you're done.